Incredible breakthrough. Discover the heartwarming peace treaty that changed lives forever. In a small Midwestern town, where the sun rises over countless fields of corn and the community is packed with history, the air was charged with an intensity that could knock the wind out of you. Sarah, a 32-year-old single mother, felt it swell around her as she navigated through life as both a waitress and a telemarketer. With her husband deployed overseas, Sarah had fought hard to keep her family afloat after he went missing in action almost 2 years ago. Each was a bustling tornado of activity, all while raising her spirited children, Emma and Jake, who filled her life with joy even in the chaos. But the storms were brewing outside the home, too. The community center, a beacon of hope for families like hers, was teetering on the brink of closure, facing severe budget cuts. Last summer, it was the hub of laughter and support, where children gathered for summer camp and parents found solace in one another. Now, it was a desolate reminder of what they might lose. Tensions rose as old-timers struggled to preserve their way of life against newcomers, like Maria, an immigrant seeking the American dream. Determined not to let that promise slip away, Sarah joined forces with Maria, despite whispers and judgment from locals clinging to outdated beliefs. "Let's bring the town together," Maria urged, her voice as fierce as the determination in Sarah's heart. Gathered allies were rallied, and discussion echoed through the streets and diners. They prepared for the pivotal town hall meeting, a chance to unite in shared struggle. As emotions crackled in the tense atmosphere of the meeting, eyes filled with anger and fear, the clamor of voices drowned out the whispers of connection desperately seeking air. Sarah's heart pounded as she stood with Maria, navigating through the chaos, when a sudden confrontation erupted, revealing the prejudices hidden beneath the surface of the town's identity. Sarah quietly stepped back, feeling the familiar grip of despair tighten around her chest. It was then she heard it, a local veteran recounting memories of her husband. Each word was like daggers to the heart, unveiling secrets bound by silence. The valiant soldier she had loved now revealed scars that had haunted him. Regret dripped from each tale, shattering everything she thought she knew about loyalty, love, and resilience. How had she not seen the truth lurking behind those proud tales? Fresh tears flowed down her cheeks, mirroring the heartbreak across the room. Yet, in that pain, there was raw honesty of vulnerability shared, uniting rather than dividing. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Just when Sarah thought all hope was lost, something incredible began to unfold. Those once divided townsfolk slowly felt walls crack, as familiar faces shared stories of hardship and perseverance that echoed Sarah's journey. Newfound understanding blossomed amidst the whirlwind of emotions. They began to step across boundaries, exchanging compassion for the very first time. And hands gripped each other tightly, creating an unbreakable chain of love. The chaos had morphed into a rallying cry. Can they find the peace they so desperately need? As eyes shifted from anger to understanding, Sarah turned to Maria. Together, they still stood at the edge of something fragile yet beautiful. Would this spell of unity last, when the echoes of their past still held power? Would they wrestle with the histories that might bring the bitterness back? The answers swirled with uncertainty as their hearts ached for the next step into healing where love could ignite what hurt. The town hall meeting had morphed into a gathering unlike anything Sarah had ever witnessed. The raw energy crackling through the space felt electric. Faces, once set in lines of anger, began to soften as stories unfolded. She watched as old grudges melted away in the warmth of shared experience. What started as fear transformed into the courage to connect people, reaching across the divide, seeking understanding instead of conflict. As the clamor subsided, a young woman barely in her 20s stood up. With trembling hands, she recounted how her father, now suffering from PTSD, had been held back by unspoken fears of not being accepted. Fears that stemmed from conversations he'd overheard in town. She fought back tears, revealing how the community's sharp words had hurt him deeper than any battlefield wound. The silence that followed was thick. Every breath seemed to weigh heavily on the crowd. Sarah's heart raced. This was the moment she had been waiting for, a chance for the people in this room to see that they weren't alone. With Maria beside her, she could feel the warmth of their unity pulsating like a heartbeat. "Thank you for sharing that," Sarah said, her voice quiet but firm, barely above a whisper. The eyes of the crowd turned toward her, and suddenly she felt the weight of their scrutiny. Would they accept her words? "My husband is gone, but his absence doesn't mean I've forgotten. It brings me solace to know there are still those fighting, living, and struggling just like us. We need each other in this, especially now." Each word resonated in her chest like a drum echoing through the hall, her voice growing stronger. The crowd began to nod, that initial tension easing, eyes softening, expressions changing. Little by little, barriers began to crumble, room by room. Just like her husband's memories and the recollections of others were laid bare, sparking a fire of solidarity. Maria stepped forward, placing a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "The struggle isn't one we bear alone. If we can share in our pain, we can heal together. We need to understand each other's stories, the good, the bad, the ugly. Because that's the fabric that connects us." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the audience. And at that moment, a local farmer, a man known for his stubbornness, raised his hand. "I've been thinking." He hesitated, eyes downcast. "My father fought in the war, and I never understood what he went through until I started hearing stories from veterans here. All I saw were the medals and the glory. I never saw the scars or their struggles." "I'm sorry." The words hung in the air, heavy but full of promise. As each voice joined the chorus of vulnerability, Sarah felt a shift within herself. The room brightened, as if light had broken through a storm cloud. She could see glimpses of hope silhouetted against a backdrop of unity. This wasn't just a fight to save the community center. It was a push to save the very essence of what made them a town. But as the meeting wound down, doubt still crept in. Would this heartfelt connection last? Would the press of daily life, the pressures of the world outside this room, pull them back into their corners? The voices began to quiet, but in that stillness, a single voice rose up once more, bringing them all back to the core of their something newfound. "Let's continue this discussion, this community of healing. Let's not let it end here." Sarah's heart soared. As the crowd erupted into applause, Sarah felt the vibrancy of change all around. But it was bittersweet, too, tinged with the worry of how fragile this newfound bond truly was. What would it take to keep it alive beyond just words? She glanced at Maria, who met her gaze with a knowing smile, but also a glimmer of concern. They had ignited a flame, but now they needed to tend to it. Sarah drew a breath, the challenges ahead feeling daunting. Could they create the continuous dialogue that was necessary for true healing? The night ended, but uncertainty loomed. What would their first steps be? How could they ensure this flicker of hope would not extinguish? As they stepped outside, a crisp wind wrapped around them like a gentle promise. But was it enough? What lay ahead would determine if they could sustain this moment of unity or if it was just a fleeting dream. The next morning, a soft light spilled through Sarah's curtains. The world outside buzzed with its ordinary rhythm, but within her, a changed landscape stirred. She brewed a pot of coffee, the rich aroma curling through the air, grounding her thoughts. As she sipped her coffee, flashes from the meeting replayed in her mind. Every voice, every teary eye, they echoed with a promise, a possibility. There was a real chance they could build something lasting. But how? Her phone buzzed on the table, breaking her reverie. It was a message from Maria. Morning. Can we meet? I have an idea. Hope flickered in Sarah's chest. Maria's energy was infectious, a much-needed spark. They gathered at the small cafe at the edge of town, a familiar haunt where laughter and support mingled almost as easily as coffee and pastries. Sarah slid into the booth, and Maria arrived moments later, her eyes gleaming with excitement. I've been thinking about how we can keep that momentum going. What if we organized a community circle? A safe space for stories to be shared regularly. A circle. Sarah mused, picturing it in her mind, seats arranged in a way that invited conversation rather than competition. You think people will come back? I believe they will, Maria said firmly. After last night, I think we've tapped into something deeper. People need to feel heard. It'll build trust. We'll want more of that. Sarah nodded, warming to the idea. But how do we get the word out? We can't just put up a poster and hope for the best. I have some connections, Maria said. Let's use social media, reach out to local groups, and spread the word through key players in the town. If they see the value, they'll help rally the crowd. The fear of failure clawed at Sarah's insides. What if no one shows up? What if we push too hard and it backfires? Maria leaned forward, her gaze steady and reassuring. We can't let fear hold us back. Last night showed us there's a desire for connection. Let's focus on that. Let's give them a reason to believe. With every word, Sarah felt a sense of hope growing. They would be the catalysts for something important, something powerful. As they polished their plan, brainstorming ideas for the first gathering, they both felt the urgency propel them forward. Ideas flowed, a theme around vulnerability, maybe inviting a local veteran to share his story as a starting point. Each suggestion felt like a step closer to turning abstract hope into something tangible. By the time they parted ways, the weight of doubt had transformed into a buoyant excitement. Sarah walked home feeling lighter, her spirit as bright as the sun overhead. But as she opened her front door, her heart dropped at the sight of an envelope lying on the mat. The handwriting was unmistakable letters scrawled in an erratic but familiar style. Tearing it open, Her hands began to tremble as she recognized the words. You are stirring up trouble you can't contain. It's dangerous to remind people of their pain. Be careful. Her stomach sank. The shadows of the night loomed large, and suddenly her newfound strength felt fragile again. Could they truly create a circle of trust in a town steeped in fear? Or was this all a dangerous game, one that could unravel everything they had begun? She took a deep breath and reminded herself of the warmth that had filled that town hall. There was hope. But she also knew, deeper than ever, that navigating this path wouldn't just be about fostering healing. It would be about confronting the shadows lurking in their past. Determined, she tightened her grip on the letter. It was time to stand firm, not just for her husband, but for everyone who needed a voice. The real battle was just beginning, and they had to be ready. What would the next step be in this fragile dance of hope and fear? And what other hidden truths lay just below the surface of their community? The sun dipped low in the sky as Sarah paced her living room, the letter clutched in her hand feeling heavier with each twist of her thoughts. Shadows crept up the walls, mocking her hopeful intentions. She had dared to imagine a safer, kinder community, but doubt now gnawed at her, whispering its warnings. There were so many questions swirling in her mind. What if she was making a grave mistake? She should have known that stirring old emotions could provoke resistance. How many others shared the anxiety that wrapped around her heart? Did they feel it too, or was it just her? Time slipped by as she deliberated, caught between fear and determination. Finally, she picked up her phone, dialing Maria's number. Her friend answered almost immediately, her voice bright and buzzing. Hey, Sarah, ready to plan the big event? Taking a breath, Sarah steered the conversation towards her concerns. Maria, have you thought about resistance? Maybe not everyone will be on board. I got a letter today, and it's got me questioning everything. An elongated pause filled the line before Maria replied, Ladies, letters, and laughter aside, we can't drown in worry. We've uncovered a need, and that's powerful. What's a little pushback when we can facilitate healing? But what if we get hurt? Sarah pressed, her voice trembling under the weight of her doubts. Or what if we heal? Maria shot back, her conviction unwavering. Think about it. If we never act out of fear, how will we ever find a way? You already feel the stirrings of hope, right? Just like that, Sarah felt a small spark reignite. Maria had a way of nudging her back toward the light. Okay. But let's be smart about this. Maybe we can start small, do a soft launch and invite just a few people first. Perfect, Maria exclaimed. We'll craft the invitation around trust, vulnerability, and shared experiences. You're onto something. A smaller group could help build confidence for the next steps. Plans unfolded like leaves in spring, their ideas blooming under the warmth of purpose. They secured marketing via social media, reaching out to familiar faces in town, encouraging others to join their cause. It felt like building a bridge across choppy waters. Days turned into a blur of activity. Talk of the circle spread quickly, and the excitement grew. But Sarah couldn't shake the image of that letter from her mind. Every time she saw a neighbor, she wondered if they were simmering with resentment or secretly warming to the idea of coming together. On the day they finally gathered, Sarah arrived early to set up. Heart racing, she stepped into the community's center, each breath quaking with anticipation. Maria bustled in right behind her, her hands full of snacks and paper decorations. "Look at this place," Maria exclaimed, eyes sparkling. "It's going to feel cozy, inviting, perfect." But as people dribbled in, Sarah's heart thudded with mounting anxiety. She recognized many faces, smiles mixed with apprehension. They were strangers yet neighbors, each holding their battles close, just like she held hers. Finally, the time came. With a chorus of laughter and hushed conversations, people settled into their seats, an assembly of hopes and fears. Sarah stood at the helm, holding the microphone. Her palms were slick with sweat, but she caught Maria's reassuring nod and took a deep breath. "Welcome, everyone. This circle is for, well, for all of us." But before she could go on, the door swung open with a loud bang. It caught everyone's attention. In walked a figure cloaked in shadow, their eyes hidden under a worn cap. Silence engulfed the room, drawing the air taut. The tension was thick. Who was this person? What role would they play in the unfolding story? The questions rose like a tide, and Sarah's heart skipped as she awaited their next move. What truths would this mysterious newcomer reveal, and how would they affect the fragile circle Sarah and Maria had so carefully formed? Sarah felt the heat rise to her cheeks as the figure stepped further into the room. The shadow of doubt loomed over her, mixed with a flicker of fear. Who were they? Why had they chosen this moment to walk in? As if sensing the collective curiosity gripping the crowd, the figure paused, taking a slow and deliberate survey of the assembled faces. Each expression, a mixture of intrigue and caution, weighed heavy in the air. Hi, the figure spoke, their voice a smooth contrast to the tension. "I'm Jake." While the name was unassuming, it sparked a ripple of murmurs among the crowd. Some faces softened at the recognition, while others looked on warily. Sarah's pulse quickened. She had heard the name before. Jake was a local who had grown distant from the community after a series of personal struggles. "I know this might feel a bit odd," he continued, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, "but I felt compelled to be here tonight. I've seen the flyers and listened to the chatter. I wanted to understand what this circle is all about." A wave of uncertainty washed over Sarah. Was he here to support or to stir the pot? Sharing space with someone who had distanced themselves might unearth old grievances. But something about Jake's demeanor felt genuine. Maria stepped forward, breaking the momentary silence. "You're welcome, Jake. We're just here to create a safe space where we can talk, listen, and share. That's what this is all about." Jake nodded, his eyes darting between the attendees. "I've been just living in the shadows, you know. I miss the connection, and maybe I've been too fearful to reach out. Seeing you all come together made me realize I was missing something important." Sarah sensed a shift in the room. Curiosity replaced the anxiety. People responded to Jake's vulnerability with subtle nods. He was a local, someone they could relate to, someone who had seen the darker sides of life. With a spark of hope igniting in her chest, Sarah stepped in. "Jake, thank you for sharing. We're all here for different reasons, but our experiences bind us together. Everyone carries something, and it's okay to be scared. It's how we heal that matters most." As the evening unfolded, Sarah felt the encroaching vulnerability start to seep from her own heart. People spoke. Their voices faltered, but they spoke. Jake shared moments of pain and redemption. Others followed suit. Each story clutched the room tighter together. Raw emotions emerged, some tears flowed. Deep, laughter-filled spaces, and a foundation of trust began to rise like fresh soil. By the time the clock ticked toward the end of the session, the atmosphere was thick with camaraderie and hushed whispers of understanding. Shared glances told richer stories than words ever could. But just as Sarah began to breathe deeply, feeling a new resolve settle in, a woman's voice rang out from the back of the room. What about those who don't want to change? What if they resist? Are we really prepared for that? The words hung heavy in the air again. Would this newfound unity withstand the inevitable challenges that lay ahead? And Sarah wondered, as the weight of reality hung like a shroud, how many others felt the same apprehension. As they all turned to face the source of the challenge, Sarah felt the echoes of hope crashing against uncertainty. What would they decide together next? Would they stand firm, or would the cracks of doubt beneath their fragile connection begin to surface once more? Jake's gaze locked onto the woman who had spoken, a mixture of curiosity and concern evident in his eyes. "You're right," he replied, his voice firm yet open. "Not everyone is ready to face their struggles, and it's okay to feel hesitant." The crowd shifted, whispers fluttering through the air. The tension simmered. For a moment, Sarah held her breath, wondering if this was where it all broke down. Would doubt drive them apart now that they had begun to connect? Maria sensed the atmosphere thickening and stepped forward again. This isn't just about sharing our stories. It's also about acceptance of ourselves and each other. We can't force anyone to change. But what if we create a space so warm and inviting that it draws them in? A ripple of agreement washed over the group. Sarah could see heads nodding slowly, hesitation melting into curiosity. Maybe hope could be contagious after all. "I think I get what you're saying," Jake said, his voice growing stronger. "It's not about fixing anyone. It's about being there when they're ready to take that leap. We all want connection. It's a fundamental part of being human." That resonated deeply with Sarah. Her heart swelled. It was true. Understanding didn't require anyone to change overnight. It took time, patience, and genuine kindness. Someone in the back spoke up, a voice both scared and brave. "But what if we reach out and they push us away? What if we're rejected?" Jake stepped closer to the person, his gaze steady and reassuring. Rejection is a part of life. But what if we reframed that? Instead of seeing it as failure, we think of it as an opportunity and invitation to try again when the moment is right. Each time we reach out, it's strengthening our compassion. Sarah could feel the collective heartbeat of the group, a pulsing rhythm of hope and fear. Moments like these, she realized, were what mattered most. They weren't just discussing fear. They were diving into the depths of being human. "I have to admit," Jake continued, now more animated, "the flyers caught my attention because I felt so alone. I honestly thought I was the only one. But being here tonight, I see I'm not. You're all facing your own battles, and it makes me realize I'm far from alone." His vulnerability resonated, and the woman from the back nodded. "I didn't expect to feel this way tonight, but maybe I was too focused on my own doubts. I've spent so long waiting for others to change that I forgot about the power in my own hands. Sarah looked around the room, seeing shifts in expressions as people recognize their shared experiences. They weren't just participating anymore, they were connecting. The doubts that had once woven through the space were being replaced by newfound determination. A man with tears in his eyes spoke up. I thought this was going to be a waste of time. But if Jake can take this step, then maybe I should start thinking about mine. More heads nodded, murmurs of agreement threading through the air, the energy shifting again. Sarah felt a surge of hope. They were creating a web of understanding, one thread at a time. Just as the tension transformed into a warm glow of camaraderie, the door creaked open. The crowd turned instinctively. A familiar face appeared. Someone Sarah hadn't seen in years, Carl. An old friend whose absence still stung. Hard voice, he said softly, stepping the lane. Maybe I could join. The collective breath held in the room was charged with possibilities. Would Carl's return be a new chapter of healing or a reminder of past wounds? Sarah's heart raced, uncertainty clawing at her insides. What would happen next? Would this surprise bring further unity or unleash old fears? The room pulsed with a mix of surprise and apprehension. Carl stood in the doorway, his familiar face both comforting and unsettling. It had been years since they'd shared the kind of laughter that echoed in her heart, yet here he was, standing awkwardly, searching for acknowledgement. Carl! Sarah whispered, as if saying his name would break the spell of what felt like a dream. Memories flooded her, mind-sunlit days spent laughing over ice cream, late-night talks about everything and nothing. Yet there was a reason they had drifted apart, a history steeped in sorrow that she hadn't quite processed. Jake shifted his focus to Carl, clearly reading the atmosphere. Of course, you can join, he said with a welcoming smile. The tension in the air seemed to dissipate, if only slightly. People began stepping back, creating a circle, making room for Carla's physical manifestation of a new acceptance. Carl shuffled forward, hands tucked into his pockets, eyes darting between familiar faces. I didn't know about this place. But I was hoping, he paused, swallowing hard, that maybe I wasn't too late. Something clicked inside Sarah. His voice held a tremor that mirrored the uncertainty she felt within. She took a step forward. It's never too late, she said firmly, warmth spreading through her chest as hope stirred. We're all on this journey together, trying to figure things out. The woman from the back, who had spoken before, chimed in. We create our own community. There's space here for everyone, especially for those we've missed. Those words were like a little spark, igniting something in Carl's eyes. I've missed all of you, he admitted, his voice cracking. But I didn't know how to come back after I left. I thought you'd think I didn't care. No one feels that way, Jake assured him. Life can take us in different directions. But tonight, we're all facing our fears together. The floodgates had opened. Someone else spoke, vulnerability surfacing in their voice. We've all been on paths that sometimes led us astray, but isn't that how we find our way back? There were nods of agreement and murmurs of shared experiences echoing in the room. As Carl stood there, the edges of his worried expression began to soften. Slowly, his shoulders relaxed, and the corner of his mouth turned upward. I guess I've been afraid of rejection for too long. It feels good to be here, to know I can still find acceptance. The camaraderie began to ripple through the group once more, and the warmth intensified. People laughed softly, sharing stories of lost connections and renewed hopes. Sarah felt her heart swell as she watched Carl navigate this new space, feeling the audience of hands reaching towards him, family being redefined. "I've spent too much time wallowing," he confessed, finally connecting with Sarah's gaze. "I don't want to be a ghost in my own life anymore." As his words hung in the air, a sudden rush of emotion surged through her. It was more than just reconnection. It was a moment of catharsis, a shared realization that they were all capable of transformation. They didn't have to remain shackled by the past. But just as the laughter filled the air, and it felt like everything was coming together, another unexpected sound broke through the sound of a phone ringing sharply in the silence. The bright screen lit up the room, revealing a name that sent shivers down Sarah's spine: Mom. The realization that once again they were at the crossroads of healing and unresolved pain lingered in the air. Would she answer? Would the call disrupt this moment of reunion? Did she even want to pick up? As expectations grew thick around her, relief and anxiety collided. What would this call mean for everything happening in that room? Sarah's heart raced as she stared at the phone, the world around her fading into a blur. The laughter and warmth of the room felt distant, a stark contrast to the icy grip of dread tightening in her chest. The name flashing on the screen was a reminder of all the unresolved emotions she had tried to put behind her. It felt like a shadow looming over this moment of newfound connection. "Are you okay?" Jake's voice broke through her thoughts. He was standing beside her, concern etched on his face. She couldn't find the words to explain the tumult of feelings swirling inside her. Instead, she nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at her gut. "What if I don't answer?" she whispered, almost to herself. The question hung in the air, like an uninvited guest, bold and demanding attention. "Then you might miss an opportunity," Jake replied gently. "But it's your call." He gave her a reassuring smile, a solid anchor amidst the chaos. His presence felt grounding, and for a moment, it reminded her of why she had let Carl back into her life tonight. As the phone continued ringing, Sarah suddenly felt the weight of eyes upon her. Carl's gaze was cautious yet hopeful, and a few others in the group exchanged encouraging looks. She realized she wasn't just carrying her own burden anymore. They were all in this together, navigating rough terrain after years of silence and distance. Taking a deep breath, she finally swiped to answer, heart pounding like a drum. "Hello." "Sarah?" Her mother's voice crackled through, worn and heavy with something unspoken. It felt like shattering glass inside her mind. "Mom," she replied, unsure how to continue. The memories of their last fight flooded back, a mix of anger and sorrow. "What do you want?" There was a pause, and for a moment, Sarah thought her mother might hang up. But then, she heard a deep, shaky breath. I need to talk to you." "It's important." Her heart twisted. Important, after all this time. The words felt heavy and entangled with residual hurt. She remained silent, weighing whether to pull away or lean in. "Please, just listen. I am trying to understand something," her mother continued, voice breaking slightly. "I've been thinking a lot about us, and I realize I've made mistakes." The honesty of her mother's admission caught Sarah off guard. The vulnerability in that moment began to chip at the barrier she had built around her heart, but could she really believe it? As she listened, she was aware of the room's energy shifting. Carl had stepped back, giving her space, while others stood around, frozen in anticipation, feeling the gravity of this unexpected phone call. "Mom, it's not just about you," she finally said, her voice steadying. "I've been hurt too. We need to talk about everything, about the past. Then let's do that." "I want to hear you," her mother replied, sincerity lacing every word. "I want to start over." The two sentences clashed in Sarah's mind like fireworks. Start over? Could they really talk about the hurt and begin to heal? Just then, she felt Jake's hand on her shoulder, a silent nod of encouragement reminding her that she wasn't alone in this. As they continued down this raw path of rediscovery, she pondered whether it was possible to bridge that chasm between them, but uncertainty clung to her like a shadow. "Okay, let's talk. We can find common ground," she finally managed to say, her voice thick with emotion. The tension in the room morphed into something electric, a flicker of hope igniting as everyone held their breath. Behind her, she could feel Carl stepping forward, his presence a reminder of the support surrounding her. Yet, as the conversation unfolded, a nagging thought slid into her mind. What if the past was more complicated than she realized? A resolution hung in the air, but the weight of the unknown loomed larger. Would this phone call lead to healing, or would it unravel all the progress they had made together that night? As her mother's voice drifted into a new topic, Sarah's grip on the phone tightened. And she couldn't help but wonder if reuniting with the past meant reclaiming a sense of belonging or losing herself all over again. The words hung in the air like a fragile glass bell, ready to shatter. Sarah's fingers trembled on the phone as she leaned slightly away from the group, needing a moment to breathe. Jake's comforting presence felt warmer, in that moment, like a bright candle flickering against the darkness of her doubts. "Mom, if we're going to do this," she faltered, trying to keep her voice steady, "you have to promise to be honest." No, more hiding. Her heart raced at the vulnerability of what she was asking. It felt odd to demand transparency from someone whose silence had once suffocated their relationship. "I promise," her mother said, and for the first time, there was a buoyancy in her tone, as if hope had seeped back into their conversation. The background noise faded away, the laughter muffled as Sarah's world narrowed down to just the two of them. She could sense Carl's reassuring glance from the side, grounding her as the storm of memories swirled. Her mother's soft breaths came through the phone, tempered with the weight of years lost. "What do you want to say?" Sarah asked, her voice small. "I've been thinking about that last day," her mother began, and it felt as if her heart was being placed on an altar, ready for sacrifice. "I was so caught up in my own pain that I couldn't see yours." The admission hit Sarah in the chest, making it hard to breathe. "You left. I needed you, and you just disappeared." "I know, and I'm sorry," her mother offered, a tremor of regret in her voice. "I thought leaving would be easier. I didn't realize how much it would hurt you. I was too wrapped up in my own world." The stark honesty cracked the shell of resentment around Sarah's heart. She felt anger bubble up, but instead, she wrestled it back down. "It was hard for me too," she managed, feeling small. "You weren't just my mom. You were my best friend and my safe place." There was silence on the liner, pause heavy with memories and unspoken words. The air felt charged, almost electric, as if the ghosts of their past were watching closely, hoping for reconciliation. "I want to fix this, Sarah. I really do," her mother said at last, her voice trembling. "What do I have to do?" Sarah's breath hitched. She had never anticipated this question. It was one thing to share the hurt, but to stand on the precipice of repair was another. "I think we need to talk more. Not just about what happened, but about who we are now. We've changed. Will you let me in? Give me a chance to know you again." Her mother's voice, wavering between hope and despair, made Sarah's heart constrict painfully. Would it be enough? Years of hurt couldn't just evaporate with a few words, could they? "Okay," Sarah said softly. "Let's start with dinner. Just you and me, no distractions. No one else. Can we do that?" "It's a start," her mother replied, a hint of relief breaking through the tension. A tightness began to ease in Sarah's chest as she hung up the phone. She stood there, trembling, and as the weight of the conversation settled, the chatter in the room returned. People resumed their conversations, yet the mood had shifted. Everyone was watching her, and she suddenly felt raw and exposed. "How was it?" Jake asked, stepping closer, his gaze steady. "I think I opened a door," Sarah replied, still wrestling with her emotions. Carl broke into a smile, his eyes sparkling with pride. "That's huge, Sarah. You faced it head-on." But as she smiled back, the underlying fear struck her like a bolt of lightning. What if that door swung both ways? It might lead her back to her mother, but also pull her into the past she'd tried to escape. As the laughter and chatter swirled around her again, Sarah felt a mixture of hope and trepidation wash over her. Could she really face the journey of healing with all its twists and turns? And what lay on the other side of that door she had just opened? With her heart still in turmoil, she turned to Jake, who had been so pivotal in this moment. "What if I'm not ready?" Jake took a deep breath, the weight of her fear hanging between them. Sometimes, the hardest steps lead to the best places. Sarah nodded, feeling the gravity of his words. But behind that uncertainty lay a new question, one that clamored for attention. What if the truth that awaited her was more profound than she was prepared to handle? As the group gathered in the community center, the energy felt transformed. Sarah, still riding the emotional waves of her phone call, looked around the room, taking in the faces that surrounded her. First-time connections had multiplied, and vulnerability had become an unbreakable thread binding them. Yet, the lingering memory of her mother's voice echoed in her mind, threatening to shatter this newfound unity. What lay ahead in their conversation felt both exhilarating and terrifying. "Let's focus," Maria called out, snapping Sarah back to the present. "We've shared so much tonight, our worries, our hopes. Now, let's talk about how we can support each other going forward." The crowd nodded, eyes lit with determination. They were ready to take steps together collectively, transforming fragility into strength. Someone in the back raised their hand. "We need to create more spaces like this, right? We've shown we can connect." Cheers of agreement erupted. Another chimed in. "Let's meet weekly, share stories, offer support. It feels good to talk and be heard." A refrain of encouragement surged, softening the edges of Sarah's anxiety. On this night, they weren't just individuals battling their demons. They were a community gathering strength together. "I know we can do it," Jake said, his voice rising with passion, "but it'll take all of us." If we continue to support each other, we can embrace transformation without fear of rejection. As the energy pulsed through the room, Sarah caught a glimpse of hope. A renewed desire to confront their shared past and build a future founded on trust. Maybe we can unite this town, Carl suggested, bursting with inspiration. Bridge every divide, from old grievances to new connections. We've all felt what loneliness can bring. Let's decide to be a part of the solution. A wave of enthusiasm washed over the group, affirming their collective goals. But as cheers echoed, a shadow of worry danced at the back of Sarah's mind. What if those who still resisted would fight back? Let's not shy away from conflict, either, Maria added, sensing the unease. It's okay to disagree, but we must do it with respect for one another. If we understand each other's stories, maybe we'll find common ground. Her words resonated with every heart in the room. This was about more than just saving the community center. It was about preserving and transforming lives. Encouraged, Sarah stood up, feeling empowered to voice her thoughts. I realized this might not be easy for everyone, including me, but I can't let my own past hold me back. We need each other. Emboldened by support, she continued, I shared pain with my mother earlier, and I want to seek healing. I owe it to my kids, to this community, and to you all. If I can face her, I've got to believe we can face anything together. Applause erupted, fueling the fire in the room. Hope radiated off each person and merged into a collective wish for healing. They weren't just a patchwork of old rivalries. They were a quilt, every thread a story, every embellishment a lesson learned. The past could remain just that past if they chose to move forward together. As the evening wound down, Sarah started feeling lighter. She could envision the community circle gathering, momentum growing larger with each week. Stitching together lives, healing wounds, and breathing new life into connections. With triumphant resolve, she turned to Jake. We've got this. It's possible to create real change. Jake's eyes twinkled with joy as he nodded. This is just the beginning, Sarah. Our story doesn't end here. It unfolds every day. That night, as she lay in bed, Sarah thought about the journey ahead. The fear still lurked but was no longer as heavy. With Maria, Jake, Carl, and the whole community behind her, she felt ready to step into the light. As dawn's first rays kissed the earth, she continued to embrace the spark of change within her. She could reach her mother and mend that bond while creating something beautiful, Hera, connection that bound them all together. And she swore that the next time someone reached out, she wouldn't hesitate, but would embrace the moment wholeheartedly. In Sarah's heart, a new anthem resonated, the kind that dared everyone to rise and connect beyond the shadows, celebrating their differences instead of fearing them. With hope surging through her veins, she took a breath and smiled, already feeling the world shifting around her. Now was the time to act, to make this beautiful endeavor last. Sarah sent a text to Maria that morning. Let's keep moving forward together. Can we start planning that next meeting? Sarah didn't just imagine the power of connection. She was ready to live it, to breathe life into it, and share it with every corner of her world. And as the sun rose golden and hopeful, so did Sarah, ready to face life's next chapter, a chapter scarred but celebrated, turning pain into an undeniable strength. Because when you connect through love, the possibilities are infinite. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread the love. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. And don't wait, not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.